Education with Knowledge Academy. My perfect tutor here, Mr. Gilbert Sinte. So welcome to the last part of this topic, International Human Rights Instruments. That's been a long topic, but now we are concluding. So we are just finishing the Specialized Human Rights Instruments from where we left off in part 2. Specialized Human Rights Instruments. So we only did 2, and now we are going to take it up from there and we'll do the third one. So the third one is the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman or Degrading Treatment or Punishment, the CAT in short. So this convention came into being on 10th December 1984, but Zambia became a state party to the convention in 1998. So what is the aim of this instrument? The aim of this instrument, the CAT, is to totally forbid torture and other cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. That's why when we were doing the Zambian Bill of Rights, we said it largely reflects the provisions contained in the International Human Rights Instruments. As you can see here, we have protection against torture or cruel or degrading treatment, which is there in the Zambian Bill of Rights. Now, what is the principal definition of torture? Torture here. What torture does this document protect against? So, torture is defined as any act by which severe pain or suffering, whether physical or mental, is intentionally inflicted on a person for such purposes as obtaining from him or a third person information or confession, punishing him for an act he or a third person has committed or is suspected of having committed. As long as it is one of these, then it is called torture according to this document, the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman or Degrading Treatment or Punishment. This is how it defines torture. It was adopted in 1984. Zambia became the state party to this convention in 1998. That's why we have a right in the Zambian Bill of Rights, which protects us against torture or inhuman treatment. Great. So now let us look at the summary of provisions in the CAT, the Convention Against Torture or Other Cruel, Inhuman or Degrading Treatment or Punishment. 1. It says prohibit torture. It doesn't get along with torture, this document. No refuller. So what is the meaning of refuller? This means to send back a person to a country where he or she is likely to undergo torture. You know that this person, when you send him or her back to his or her own country, they are going to torture him. You are not supposed to send such people back because, there is an international human rights instrument that is protecting such individuals from torture. So, no refuller. Punish torturers. In this document, you will find the provision which says punish torturers. Rehabilitate victims of torture through counseling. Control the system of interrogation and detention. Interrogation and detention, we are talking about police officers detaining you in police custody. As they are trying to obtain information from the suspect, police officers are not allowed to use any form of force. They are not allowed. Report to the committee. Educate citizens on the evil of torture. These are the provisions that you will find in the CAT, the Convention Against Torture. These are the provisions. Now, let us talk about the fourth one, International Convention on the Protection of the Rights of All Migrant Workers and Members of Their Families, CMW. So this is meant to protect the rights of people working in a country which is not theirs or in the diaspora. These are called migrants. Migrant workers, migrants. People working in a country which is not theirs. So state parties, we mean countries which ratify or accede this instrument, are obliged to protect and seek judicial remedy to those migrant workers whose rights have been violated. Now, what is the principal definition of these migrant workers here? So this applies to all migrant workers, as long as you're working in a country which is not yours. So all migrant workers and members of their families, without distinction of any kind, such as sex, race, color, language, religion or conviction, political or other opinion, national, ethnic or social origin, nationality, age, economic position, property, marital status, birth or other status. As long as this person is working in a country which is not his or her own, then they are called migrant workers. And this document protects their rights. Now, there are categories of migrant workers. There are different types of migrant workers, and we have to know them. So, firstly, we have frontier workers. Who are frontier workers? These are workers who stay in the neighboring country to which they return on daily basis or at least once a week. Maybe you just stay on the border, whereby you stay on the border for Zambia and Congo. So let's say you are a Zambian, you work from Congo, but you stay on the border. So you may find that this week you are working from Congo. Just after 1 week, you come back to Zambia to visit your family. You are a frontier worker. You are a migrant worker, but you are a frontier worker because you are not there permanently. Then we have seafarers. Seafarers are those who are employed on water vessels. Which water vessels? Those which are registered in a country other than theirs. You work with a ship, but the ship is not registered in Zambia. It is registered in another country. So you'll be called a seafarer. You're a migrant worker, but a seafarer. Then we have seasonal workers. Seasonal workers are those who get employment in other countries during specific seasons, such as harvesting season. For example, we may get people from Congo during harvesting to come here in Zambia just to work for that particular season, and then after that, they'll go back to Congo. So those workers will be called seasonal workers. Then we have workers on offshore installations, which are under the countries other than theirs. What are offshore installations? Here we're talking about things like pipelines, fixed installations. Let's talk about the Tanzania pipeline. It starts from Tanzania, then it comes to Zambia here. So we may have Zambians who are guarding the pipeline in Tanzania there. So this is an offshore installation. So those guards will be called the migrant workers. They'll be called migrant workers. Then apart from the workers on offshore installations, we have itinerants. Who are itinerants? These are workers who move from place to place looking for employment. Today they are in Zambia, the other day they'll be in Tanzania, the other day they'll be in Botswana, Congo, Namibia looking for employment. These are called itinerants. Then we have migrants employed for a specific project. For example, construction of roads, dams, etc., etc. They are just employed for a specific project, after which they will go back to their own country. Then we also have self-employed workers. These people who have businesses, shops. So those are called migrants. They are protected by this document. So now let us look at the summary of provisions in the CMW. Non-discrimination of migrant workers and their families without distinction of any kind. It prohibits discrimination against migrant workers. The migrant workers and members of their families shall be free to leave any state, including their state of origin. They are free to leave any state. If they are in Zambia, they are free to leave Zambia and go back to their own country or go to any other country they would want to go to. They have the right to enter and remain in their state of origin. The right to life of migrant workers and members of their families shall be protected by law. Whether they are in Zambia but they belong to Congo, their right to life shall be protected. Remember, these are international human rights instruments, so they apply to all the countries. That's the meaning. No migrant worker or members of their families shall be subjected to torture or cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. No migrant worker or members of their families shall be held in slavery or servitude. No migrant worker or members of their families shall be required to perform forced or compulsory labor. They shall have the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. Even if they're in Zambia, you can't force them to join Christianity. They can be Muslims, they can be Hindus, whatever they like to be. They shall have the right to hold opinions without interference. They shall not be subjected to any arbitrary or unlawful interference of their privacy. So these people are protected by international human rights instruments here. So don't think if they come from Tanzania, they come from Zimbabwe, they live here in Zambia, you can treat them whichever way you feel like treating them. They are protected, very much protected by international human rights instruments. This is all about the international human rights instruments, where we have the International Bill of Rights, which comprises the three documents: Universal Declaration of Human Rights, International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, and the International Convention on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. That is the International Bill of Rights. Then, apart from these major documents, we also have the Specialized Human Rights Instruments. Specialized Human Rights Instruments, where we have the International Convention on the Elimination of all forms of racial discrimination, International Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. Then we have International Convention on the Elimination of discrimination against migrant workers and their families. Then we have the last one, which is Convention against torture or other cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment. So this is how you can summarize this topic if you want to study it. Just know that we have international human rights instruments. You write it on top like that. Then here we have the International Bill of Rights. This is where you are going to find the three documents. Then from the International Bill of Rights, you are just going to have the Specialized Human Rights Instruments, which only deal with particular human rights issue or specific group of people. Research more. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video with a new topic.